Supreme Court heard arguments over presidential power. We've been here before, y'all, okay? And so this was a case that came up regarding Donald Trump. It's Trump versus Slaughter. So this is the case. Go ahead and pull it up. Go and pull it up there. So Trump versus Slaughter. Pull the graphic up, y'all. Thank you. So, again, this Trump case, and it all comes down to how much more power can they grant Trump. Now, this court has granted him a ton of power. Remember, even before he came back in office, they talked about presidential immunity and the additional powers that he have. Okay, now it appears a conservative majority is going to give him a big win. The court's 6 conservatives repeatedly signaled support for Trump's right to fire leaders of independent agencies like the Federal Trade Commission at will. No cause required. Justice Sonia Sotomayor pressed the Trump Solicitor General on the fallout if the court guts a 90-year precedent shielding commissioners from political firings.
Counsel Myers, which you rely on, was signed by a number of judges. One of them was Justice Sutherland, and he was the author of Humphrey's executor. So 4 out of the 9 justices who signed on to Myers signed on to Humphrey's. So you're thinking, or you're arguing, that the reasoning of the more current justices on this court have more purchase than the views of renowned jurists like Holmes and Brandeis, who dissented in Myers, of people like Justice Story, who disagreed with this proposition. You're suggesting that we have a better view than either Congress or all of those previous justices about what absolute executive power means. That's basically your argument. All those justices in the past have been wrong, and the current ones are right, or at least the current ones of the Shigella law majority.
I'd say 2 things in response to that. I think the court was correct in the following decisions: Ex parte Hennon, Parsons, Shurtleff, Myers.
Those all involve different and distinguishable situations. Now, with respect to the one component of government that you're not speaking about, when the FTC was created, as has been the case with most of these independent agencies like the Federal Reserve, particularly there, but not that much lesser with the FTC, Congress emphasized the importance of independency and the prestige that independence would give to the decisions of agencies who are going to subject the public to rules and regulations of which there might be burdens. And that independence is being taken out or undercut completely. Why are you so sure that Congress would have preferred to have the independence narrowed than not to have the agency at all? Some of my colleagues have suggested in prior cases that we shouldn't be engaged in the severability actions at all. But here you are arguing that, no, we should be doing that. Why? Are you going to be consistent?
The prestige, I would say 2 things in response to that. The prestige of independency is not a constitutional value. The constitutional value is the separation of powers and the vesting of all the executive power in the presidents. That is the
according to the laws that Congress makes. And that's the point Justice Jackson was emphasizing. What you're saying is the president can do more than what the law permits.
I think I would repeat what I said before. There's a strong line of precedent recognizing that the text and structure of the Constitution confer on the president the exclusive and illimitable power to remove executive officers, and as a result of that, Humphrey should be overruled.
Folks, the case deals with Trump's ouster in March of FTC Commissioner Rebecca Kelly Slaughter. He defied Humphrey's executor, the 1935 ruling that's long insulated agencies from Oval Office interference. Of course, a decision could come down in June. Huge, a lot of different cases are going to be deciding. The thing here, Randy, is this here. What Trump has been doing is trying to, again, argue that essentially the person in the Oval Office is a king. They can do whatever they want, whenever they want. And so what this Supreme Court has done is like, yeah, go ahead. They have granted him significant rights, overturning precedent, because what this Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas has said it. Just because something is precedent, he even used the Plessy versus Ferguson, also the Dred Scott decision, by saying, well, that was precedent and it got overturned. So these folks are like, we can overturn anything what we want because we're the Supreme Court.
Right. And that's what they want to do. They want to give this president as much power as he possibly can have. They've made that very clear. But this is the thing. Democracy demands, it insists upon us having checks and balances, which means we should have some independent agencies that make them accountable, regardless of political affiliation or leanings or anything. That has always stood the test. That has always been the way our government was designed to work. But of course they don't want that, because they want Trump to have the power to fire people without any cause because they're not going with the way he wants them to go. And that's what he set up the Supreme Court to do. It doesn't matter what's right or what's wrong. It doesn't matter what the Constitution says. Just do what Trump wants you to do. Again, a dictatorship. So it's quite scary times right now, because we have some Supreme Court justices that are not going to live by the law, it seems as if, but they're going to live by, their honor and duty to Trump.
Congo?
People always tell the story of like dictatorships happen because, a leader comes in with tanks and storms the presidential mansion and blah, blah, blah. This is how a lot of dictatorships actually form, where you have people who come in and use the democratic process to get to power and then use that power to destroy the democracy. And they get the people like the courts to go along with it. This is what is happening right here in the United States with Donald Trump. The fact of the matter is that this individual, Donald Trump, he is a lawless individual, but he's empowered the Supreme Court in so many ways to empower him. And they're going to realize one day that he's going to become too powerful for them to be able to control and bring those reins in. And that's why, going off what Randy said, it's really up to the people to stand up to really be the real check. Bayard Rustin said that we protested because we didn't have the right to vote. When you have the right to vote, you don't need to protest. We need to do that combination of both right now. And this Supreme Court has let us down at every single juncture. It has been the lower courts that have been stepping up, even Trump-appointed justices. But as been said many times right now in this society, we are on our own. And when I say we are on our own, I mean it's we the people. We are left. Congress is checked out. The Senate, the House, the Senate Republicans, they've copped out as well. It's up to the people to continue to stand up, to let Trump know that we can't have a king, and to let the Supreme Court know the same thing, because they are complicit in the destruction of American democracy, and we can't let it stand.
Jolanda?
All I can say is, as a lawyer, I guess I'm not surprised, because some people are just criminals and they just break the law. But as a lawyer, one of the first things we're taught in first-year law school is something called stare decisis, which means precedent is everything. And Trump has done everything to undo that. He's been brilliant in having all the people that he's placed on the Supreme Court. I think what President Obama didn't appreciate when he was president was that they were going to vote against him, and he did things like they'd always been done in a gentlemanly fashion. And what we Democrats need to learn is, when we take power, we need to just roll people over like Trump is doing. When we take power, we need to change the composition of the Supreme Court, because those Supreme Court justices are so young, they will be there to be able to unwind the civil liberties that we've earned, Black people and other people for a century, and they're unwinding them, and they can destroy us for generations to come. So when we take back Congress and hopefully the Senate in 2026, And when we win the presidency in 2028, we need to change everything. We don't need to look at how things have always been done because they are changing the rules, and we need to learn how to be gangsters. We need to increase the number of Supreme Court justices because guess what? 3 never beats 6, which is the current composition of the conservative court. That's what we have to do. And so we need to start off in 2026, and we need to change the composition of Congress. And then we need to, again, think outside the box like Trump is. He's been waiting for his time. The people, the people who want for black people, brown people, poor people to be at the bottom have been trying to figure out for decades how to send us back to Jim Crow. That is exactly what they are doing because this Supreme Court is absolutely going to rubber stamp anything that Trump wants because the few Republicans, call them moderate if you'd like, who tried to stand up for Trump ended up eventually getting rolled over. And so everybody's terrified of him. So we need some brave people to run for office who are unafraid of Trump and who are unafraid of negative consequences to fight him. Because the one thing poor people need is we need people who will fight. We get that the system is designed to keep us down, but if we don't fight, who's going to fight for us? That's just what we need to do because we, as black, as brown people, as poor people, as gay people, as women, as poor people, we cannot count on the Supreme Court to protect us. We just can't.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase, and I'm here with a very important message. We are at a turning point in the black community where we must have equity in the apps we use that scale to billions of dollars. But this time, we own the infrastructure, we own the culture, and we shape the future. And Fanbase is the future. Fanbase combines the free functionality of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube into an all-in-one platform built for the evolution of social media and monetization. With over 1.4 million users, that's real proof that we are shifting the conversation of tech ownership and equity for creators. So right now, I want you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. This marks a turning point in black ownership of social media. If we don't take this opportunity to own social media right now, we will always be customers to our own creations. And that can't go on. So once again, go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. We must own the platforms where our voices live, our stories matter, and where our culture drives the world. Thank you.